Hey everyone, it's Terry with the Des Moines Iowa User Group. And we had on July 15th, just a couple of days ago, a user group meeting, and we hosted CapStorm, and Rebecca Gray is the one presenting in this next video their product. It is awesome. We have the best sponsors come to our group. Take a listen.
So I'm Rebecca with CapStorm. I'm going to share a screen, but while I am doing that, I do have a $150 giveaway to the Salesforce swag store. So while we are talking, Joseph thankfully volunteered to go ahead and make a list of everyone's first names. So we'll just do a fun little raffle at the very end. If you ask me a question, Joseph, you want to put their name in there twice just to make it more fun? Maybe 5 times if they stump me, which they probably can. Pretty
Oh,
easy.
okay.
Nice.
All right. I'm into it.
All right. So I'm with CapStorm. We are a Salesforce data management company. I also lead the St. Louis Salesforce User Group. So sit on the vendor side and the user group leader side. I primarily work with companies that are in fairly highly regulated areas, and I could share a bit about the CapStorm story and how we were founded by a husband-wife team 10 years ago. But instead of talking about that, I thought I'd just talk about what is Salesforce data management and why should you care. So CapStorm is a Salesforce only data management company. So we only work with Salesforce, and we stand for Salesforce data autonomy. That means the ability to govern or control your own affairs. Essentially, we give our customers the ability to use their Salesforce data in new and different ways while keeping all of that data within their own company's infrastructure, within their own databases. So I work with, and I usually assume on calls like this, we'll have some people on the admin side, some on the dev side, maybe some architects, consultants, or even business leaders that kind of straddle in the middle. So here's a couple examples just based upon some customers I work with. For admins, I work with a Fortune 500 bank based out of the US with offices all over. And they had a problem. Their problem was they needed to have a backup of their Salesforce. They needed to have a DR and continuity plan. But because of compliance requirements, they had to hold that data. They couldn't necessarily pass it to a provider because they needed to regain control over that data at all times. They also had a dev team that was struggling with getting test data sets within their lower sandbox environment. CapStorm came in. We helped the bank with a solution to solve both of these things. We actually had their first test environment up for them within 30 minutes during a session. What they achieved was an incremental backup of their data, their structure, and their metadata for their org into their own relational database that they owned and controlled, and the ability to seed any of their lower environments with real production data that was then masked in order to meet their compliance requirements. Another company I work with is a EU-based insurance provider. Brought up insurance, just knowing Des Moines being an insurance capital. We're a company, they had a Salesforce org, and they were using Report Writer, they were using Tableau, actually, but they had difficulty getting those near real-time data insights that their business needed. So what they did is they partnered with CapStorm, and what CapStorm provides is a software that sits between Salesforce and the company's own database that does that incremental replication. So they did a replication to a database that they own on-prem that they used as a data warehouse. and they replicated to a database up in AWS that they then connected directly into Tableau so that they could have data insights within 5 minutes of near real-time production. I'll take a poll. I can keep talking about use cases or we can do a demo. How's everybody feeling today? I get bored if I talk too long, so it's more fun to be interactive. Comments, feedback? All right. Demo. All right. I heard one demo. All right, we'll do it. We'll do it. Here's how this works. I'm going to grab an app. I downloaded it. I unzipped it. I put in Salesforce credentials. I connected to an empty database schema, in this case, Postgres on my computer. If I want to bring my production org down to my database, I just tell it to start. It's going to create a mirror image of my Salesforce in my database. Now, my database is on my laptop. A lot of my customers have them on Azure or an AWS, but it is going to be a table for table, field for field replication that I can schedule, set up, and run within 5 minutes of production. Now, of course, because this is a disaster recovery as well as data management, DevOps optimization application, I can do quite a bit. I can do segmented backups. Maybe I want opportunities in near real time, but attachments, I want them once an hour because they're less important to what I'm doing. I also have certain retention rules I want to meet for deleted records, or I want to say, I want 60 days of record snapshots. So if I need to do a rollback to a specific point in time, I want my admin team to be able to go in there and say, all right, I want this date, this time, and this data, and then roll it back. All that is 100% configurable. And of course, we're also backing up your metadata because backup without metadata is not very helpful. I'm going to cancel, which I can do anytime because it's incremental. I can start, I can stop. For most of my customers, this just runs in the background. I mean, nobody sits here and clicks start every 5 minutes to make sure their backup's running. Now on the dev side, let me stop there. Anyone want to ask a question and gain an extra drawing in the raffle?
Do you work with databases other than the Progress SQL?
Oh, absolutely. And I should have said that. Great question. Joseph, make sure you capture her question for that raffle if you don't mind.
I've got Teresa. I've got her.
Awesome. All right. Of course, CapStorm supports all the major database flavors. So Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres, and variants of those. Most of the customers I work with are on SQL Server or Postgres. Unless they're big organizations, then they're on Oracle. So it's really whatever database your company uses.
And
Great
cloud-based also?
Cloud-based as well, absolutely. We are about 50% of our customers run cloud, and about 50% run on-prem, some are hybrid. The only requirement is that you have a relational database. So whether that's in cloud, on-prem, one of my developers ran it on a Raspberry Pi to see if he could, so tiny little hardware. But yes, great question. Anything else? And then we'll talk about the more recovery or developer side.
So once this process of data replication is set up or backup is set up, if I were to go in and change a metadata, so let's say I were to add another field in an object or remove a field from the object, how will this be accommodated on the backup database side?
Automatically. So on the addition side, so I'm adding a field. Those changes, adding a field, adding a custom object, changing a field definition, I mean, even installing a new managed package, those changes are automatically brought down to the database the next time you have your backup job run.
Okay, great.
Now, now the I dropped field question, that depends on your settings. You might want that mirror to be always there. Salesforce and the database look the same. You might want to set it up so it doesn't automatically drop a field if you drop one in Salesforce, but that's up to you.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So in order to retrieve data, do you have a user interface where I can go and check if let's say, I deleted an opportunity which had a line, and then line had its own revenue schedule. Is there a user interface where I can go, okay, I need this opportunity back in Salesforce, but out of the 2 lines which were associated, I only need one, and then the revenue schedules?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, that plays into exactly the next topic, which is DevOps enablement, because a backup or an extraction, whether you're using your backup for analytics, like direct connection to Tableau or Power BI, or whether you're feeding a data warehouse or doing integration, a backup is only as good as its ability to actually recover, of course. So the CapStorm approach to recovery, the same solution you would use for production level restoration is what you'd use for DevOps teams. One of my colleagues actually works with a credit card company. I can't say the name of any of these because of the industries they're in, but this is a credit card you'd have in your wallet if you have a credit card. They have a DevOps team of more than 80 people. And something that they were struggling with was, again, how to get data into lower developer environments so their DevOps teams could stop sharing full copy sandboxes because they were stepping on each other too much with that application. What CapStorm enabled them to do is every developer can have their own private sandbox environment that they can seed whenever they need to with masked data. I want to answer your question on what that looks like. This is restore. Same approach. Salesforce on the left, database on the right. I'll point that as actually a sandbox, not prod. I can restore from a couple different points. I can restore from my database directly, what's there today. I can pick a point in time. So maybe I need to restore from, I don't know, June 1st at, I'll pick a time, 3 o'clock Anchorage time. And then pick the data from there. So I'm going from what the Salesforce looked like at that point in time, or any other policy I have set. I could set my own custom policies for retention, but I'm going to go to the database. And I need to restore some data. Let me grab all my tables. There's all my objects, and I can pick any one. What was the object you said originally? An opportunity got deleted?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take opportunity. More fun to do it on the fly. All right. What's popping up? Why it's taking a second you're not seeing is it's popping up a thing saying waiting for Salesforce, because it's connecting with Salesforce and showing me tables that are in my database and in Salesforce. So what kind of opportunity do you want? Do you know the ID? Do you know the name? What do you know about it?
Yeah. So click on filters.
Yeah, that's probably what I would use too. Let me bring that over. You knew it was deleted, right? And we probably know something about it. Like maybe we know the name.
Yep.
Yeah, or maybe we know who modified it. So maybe we know the person, maybe we know when, maybe we know, well, that's a bad one. Last activity day won't help, but maybe we know who modified it. We can set up a filter to match whatever criteria we want. I'm actually going to flip this. We could do an ID, of course. Writes in SQL. I'm going to leave it as random for our example, partly because I don't know what the opportunity names are in my demo data set as well as I probably should. All right, next question you asked me, I believe, was there's some related lists, right?
Yes.
It's not just an opportunity, it's something else, maybe a line item or,
Line item.
yeah, there we go, line item. You want to make it more complex, or you just want to go off in line item? We can go some more relationships if you want.
This should be fine.
All right. Well, if I want to narrow this down, I have an opportunity, a line item. You'll notice we have some accounts on there because accounts required with opportunity. I can go down to line item. And I can narrow this down even further. Maybe I only want one line item. Instead of doing reference, maybe I want to drop a filter on there. I want maybe the specific line item. I can go as granular as I want for restore. Now, something that makes it a little more fun, I'm going to grab account just because there's a lot more hanging off account. I can be real granular in my related list, build out this hierarchy, what I want to include. And I grabbed everything under asset, or I can just say all. I want all levels of relationship. Of course, I can limit the amount of records I'm putting in per parent. If I'm working in a dev org, I don't have space for my entire production instance. And pick them up. Pick up all. Let's put all the relationships under an account.
Is this looking at master detail relationships or lookup relationships also?
Both. Let me, this is mostly the master detail side. Let me go to reference fields. I'll pick on parent ID because that's real common. I can set the behavior for those lookup fields. So if I'm restoring an account and its parent is not in my target org, I know it's not there because it's a dev environment. It's empty right now. I want to create the record of the parent too. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Yes. And I can set criteria on any of these objects. So I can say I only want this type of asset. I have a customer of mine that's doing sandbox seeding entirely based off territory. They're a pharma company, so they're training their sales reps with relevant data in their own territory. The oncology reps, the oncology doctors in their territory. Now there's a lot more I could do. I mean, we haven't disabled their triggers. We haven't disabled validation. There's options for all that built in. Or I can just say restore and start, push all this data to Salesforce. It's going to push everything in the right order, restore the record IDs, repass any circular relationships. Account looks at contact, contact looks at account, patch that data for us and insert it directly into Salesforce. Now, how am I on time? I think I had about 20 minutes and I don't want to go over. I know the agenda's kind of tight.
You're doing good.
I'm good.
About another 5 minutes or so would be fine.
All right.
Question. Yeah, I'm sorry if you already answered this. I might have been distracted, but do you have a method of de-identifying the data before you seed a sandbox?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me flip that here. Let's pick on contact. So that's a common PII problem object. All right. What I did is I went to the contact object and I clicked on fields. They're all selected by default. Now, of course, I could do a restore to one field on one object, but I click on field obfuscation and I can obfuscate, let's obfuscate them all. Mask all my fields. And we can go through all the different transformers at a different point, but yes, you can mask whatever data you want on the fly. So when you get to your sandbox, you're not showing those personal identifiers. And of course, I can verify what I want, what I actually have in my restore set before I actually push it. For the sake of time, we skipped quite a few steps today, so you can imagine. All right, I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions before we do the drawing. So,
what's the pricing model for this?
Great question. Price per org, not per user. Depends on what you want to be able to do. So you're a Fortune 50, you want to seed 2,000 sandboxes, a little bit more than I have 100 people in my org and I want to seed 2.
Is it varying with the amount of data we have? Or it's
Nope.
just, no.
Not at all, because I don't know how much data you have. Because the way CapStorm is set up, I don't see any of your data. I see your org ID. I see where you're running the software. So I can tell you that a company has seeded 10 sandboxes this month, but I couldn't tell you what they did with it. So CapStorm does not see any of our customer data. It's why we play heavily in the finance and pharma sectors.
One last question on the similar thing. Does data go on any other external Heroku or AWS when you're bringing it in, or it's just APIs? That's all.
APIs, yep. Salesforce database using the API calls that you have already purchased. Yep. Now, you can push and connect to Heroku, people do, but what you do with that data is up to you. I could give you lists of things people are doing with this beyond, of course, backup restore. Even that, he called it heterogeneous environment reporting. Salesforce, ERP, mashed together, reporting on that. And we're just the engine that brings Salesforce into the picture. That's a company, they're a top 5 system integrator. Can't say the name or I get in big old trouble.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Is your software installed in a cloud-based solution or is it on-prem?
It's installed, it's a Java-based app. So you can install it anywhere you want. It is not a cloud-based solution where I, log into my portal, enter my credentials, click go. It is an actual application that you own, but you can install it in AWS or anywhere you want. Yeah, great question, Teresa.
In terms of data backup, just the data backup, how is it different from own backup?
Loaded question. I love it. Yep, completely different approach. So we are doing pure database to database transaction. So we're extracting your data similar to the form Salesforce has it into. It's not CSV backed at all. And you own and hold your data. So they have a great solution. I believe we also have a great solution. We take a very, very different approach. If you want to hear more about that, just give me a call. Be happy to walk through the differences.